Being quiet, soft-spoken, and introverted does not mean that you're boring, that you have no personality, and that you lack confidence. And for a long time, I remember feeling really insecure about the fact that I am quiet and soft-spoken, and I've always wondered if people felt like I had no personality because that's how I was treated throughout my life. And usually when people refer to someone as having no personality, they're usually referring to someone that has those same traits, like quiet, keeps to themselves, very introverted. And that's really unfair because being quiet and soft spoken, that is a personality trait. And also, for myself, me personally as an introvert, and I'm sure some of you introverts can relate to this, but I don't feel comfortable expressing my full personality around just anyone. It takes me a while to become comfortable to really express my full personality. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. Also, just because someone is more expressive, more extroverted, and louder, it doesn't necessarily mean that their personality is better. And also, I think people forget that there is a thing called quiet confidence, and it took me a while to really embrace that and just accept who I am. And I remember thinking back to when I was really young, like 9 or 10 years old. My little brother, he played football, and I wanted to try cheerleading for the first time. And so I joined the cheer team for my brother's football team. And I hated it so much, you guys. I wanted to quit, but my mom, she was like, no, I already paid for this. Like, you're gonna stick this out. And so I did, and it was miserable. But I'm also thankful for the experience. But I remember hating it so much because I would get singled out all the time by the coach because I wasn't loud enough. She would always point out in front of everyone. She would be like, Leah, you're not loud enough. And I would get bullied a lot by the other girls because I was more quiet and soft-spoken. And I remember one day she pulled me aside and we talked personally, me and the coach. And I remember crying to her because I wasn't loud enough. And she would say, you're just naturally soft-spoken and that's okay. And she would give me all these different tips to try to project my voice more. But no matter how hard I tried, I just could not be as loud as the other girls. And I started to feel like being soft-spoken was a bad thing. And it became something that I really hated about myself. And that was the time when I really started to hate that about myself. That's what made me hate that. And that was also the moment when I realized that because I was soft-spoken, people viewed me as weak. They viewed me as someone that they can take advantage of and run over. And I even see this today, even as an adult. People still point out the fact that oh, you're too nice, or you're too quiet. And people still think that they can, get over on me and that I have no backbone. And that's what I hate so much. And I realized that it's not necessarily the fact that I am soft-spoken that I hate. I think it's the fact that I hate how people view that as a weakness. It really sucks to feel like you're a target all the time. You know what I mean? And it kind of feels like sometimes you have to, perform confidence in a way or portray yourself to be something that you're not. And so I've definitely dealt with that a lot in my life. And even just thinking about work, I remember talking to my supervisor a long time ago. This was a few years ago or some years ago, and this has happened more than once, but I remember talking with the supervisor and they would tell me oh, you just got to work on your confidence. And for a while I just felt really confused about that because I would think okay, how am I not confident? Or what do I do to work on my confidence? How do I become more confident and speak more confidently? And I've always felt like I had issues kind of communicating with people, or I felt like I wasn't as articulate as I wanted to be. And so I think them seeing that is what kind of made them point out the fact that I had lack of confidence, or they would encourage me to work on that. But again, I just felt lost and I didn't know how to work on my confidence. And so to me, working on my confidence, I thought it meant, performing confidence. And so what I would do is I would try to make myself speak louder. I would try to make myself speak more. I would just try to kind of force myself to get out of my comfort zone and just communicate in a way that I naturally didn't. And I noticed that it backfired on me. I noticed that I would end up feeling a lot worse, because what would happen is I would find myself stumbling on my words more. I would find myself just being really uncomfortable. My anxiety was through the roof. I found myself ruminating on conversations more. I just found myself feeling so uncomfortable because I was trying to force myself to be someone that I wasn't, just so that I could appear more confident. And I'm pretty sure you guys have heard that saying, like, fake it till you become it. And I think that that can be really helpful and true in some cases. But in this case, me trying to fake like someone who was, confident in the way that I spoke and all these different things, it didn't help at all. And it wasn't until my later years, like really until recently, that I learned how to just be myself and embrace quiet confidence. And so what that looked like for me, I'll give you guys an example. So recently I had a work meeting, and as I mentioned before, I've always had issues kind of like communicating and communicating confidently and taking initiative and things like that, especially when it came to work and meetings and stuff. And recently I had a meeting where I did not feel good at all. I just was not feeling good, but I wanted to attend this meeting because it was important, and I just really wanted to get through this meeting. So I showed up to the meeting, and because I didn't feel good, I just didn't care that much to perform. I just, I was just like, I'm gonna get through this meeting, like it is what it is. And I didn't care. And I noticed in this meeting that I was the most confident that I had ever been, and I was able to communicate effectively. Like, people were really engaging with what I was saying, and it felt really good. And ideas and stuff, they were just flowing, and I had like pretty much no issues communicating. I didn't ruminate after the conversation. I just didn't care. And the fact that I didn't care, that is what made me communicate more confidently. And then the second thing was, I just learned to, like, in that moment, since I didn't care, I noticed that I was embracing the fact that I was really soft-spoken. I just let myself speak softly. I did not try to project my voice. I didn't try to, talk louder or say more, because that's another thing too. When you try to say more things, but you're not really speaking with substance, then it's just like, what's the point of saying it? You know what I mean? Like, a lot of people have a lot to say, but they don't have a lot of things of substance to say, if that makes sense. And so I felt like, if I wanted to be more outgoing and connect with people more, then I just needed to talk more. But that's just not true. Looking back in this meeting, I just, I was really straight to the point, really short, and didn't over explain myself. And after that meeting, I just reflected, and I was like, you know what, like, I really just want to embrace the fact that I'm soft-spoken and quiet, and I just don't care. And that's when I just felt a lot more confident, like more confident than I had ever been. And I realized that people are always going to have something to say about you. They're always going to have a perception about you, an opinion about you. Even if you are someone who's extroverted and outgoing, it might not be, people might not think that you're weak or easily taken advantage of, but they might think something else. Like, someone's always going to think something about you. And basically what I take from all this is just be yourself. Like true confidence comes from embracing who you really are, and also keeping promises to yourself and showing up for yourself. And that's something that I've really had to learn in my life. If you're really worried about what people think, people can tell when you're not being yourself. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, if you can relate to this and you're soft-spoken and quiet, just be you. There's nothing wrong with you. The people who are meant to be in your circle, they will gravitate towards that. but just be you. You don't have to pretend to be something you're not. You don't have to pretend to be anybody that you're not. Just embrace all that you are. There is a place for people who are quiet and soft-spoken, just as there is a place for people who are outgoing and extroverted. It does not mean you don't have a personality. Who you are is just fine, and sometimes that means you just have to be in a better environment. Because for me personally, I was bullied a lot because I was soft-spoken and quiet, and that's because I was in an environment where a lot of the people were loud and, you know, more aggressive, and again, people saw softness and, you know, quietness as a form of weakness. But don't forget that there is a such thing as quiet confidence. You can be confident and quiet. You can be confident just as you are. So don't let anyone make you feel like you have to be something that you're not. I love y'all, and I'll see you guys in the next video.